Hi, welcome to this third question in the series, which is, why do we need to be saved? Now, I don't know who you are, of course, and I imagine sometimes that you might be somebody who's just messed up in your life, or messed up things have happened to you and you can't fix it, and you need to be saved so that you can live your life the way it ought to be lived, the way you desire it to be lived. Or you're somebody who's looking ahead down the road and you realize the bridge is out and you don't have an answer for that. And you're wondering, is there an answer for that? So that's brought you here. And those two things, my friends, are the two first and biggest reasons why everybody needs to be saved that I'm going to be dealing with. But there's a third one that might surprise you, and I'll hold that back till the end. And this will take a little bit longer than the other questions, so please just bear with me because we do have some ground to go over. So let's go on to that first question. It has to do with, why do I need to be saved? Conscience and moral failure. Now, we all have a conscience within us. Even the Enlightenment philosopher Immanuel Kant, who was no great friend of Christianity and certainly no ardent follower of Jesus, he lived back in the 1700s, he said that there are two things that continually filled him with awe, and those are the starry heavens above and the moral law within. That's conscience. Everyone recognizes that there's a conscience within it, and by the light of conscience, we see that we're not even living as we believe we ought to be living, much less living the way, if there is a perfect creator of the universe, his standards must be a lot higher than ours. The one behind those starry heavens, he's got to have some pretty high standards. And if we're not even living up to our own moral standards there in conscience, then, oh my goodness, what can we say of his? And because of this problem, because we can't even lead ourselves properly into our own life without messing up left and right, even according to our own lights, we all need somebody to draw along beside us, or if he could, to come within us to help us live the way that we sense we were created to live. There's got to be something better. There's got to be something more. Indeed, there is. But that's what conscience is telling us. And you can try to kill it, but it doesn't die easily. And it's not going to be a good thing if we kill that gift, because that gift is trying to get us to live within the moral boundaries. Where did they come from? Nevertheless, they're there meant to keep us on a path that leads into life. And it's so hard to find. We need someone to help us. So what is the first reason? The first reason is that we need to be saved is we need to be saved for our own inability to live our lives the way they ought to be lived. And that nagging sense of conscience bugging us leads into the second question. Why do we need to be saved? Because of the inevitability of death. If conscience is bothering us right now, it's going to go off like 4 alarm bells when death approaches. Or is it 5 alarms? So, well, anyway, it's going to go off in a crazy way as death approaches, because we're going to realize, oh my, if there is a moral being who's going to be judging us. Now, a lot of people hope there isn't, but if there is, then conscience is saying we're not ready for that. And so a lot of people don't want to face the issue of death. They don't want to face the issue of the end of this life, because they don't know whether there's a next one, and they don't know how they might end up in the next one or what it might be. So let's go over the 4 things that we basically tell ourselves of what it might be, and then pull out the 5th thing that Christianity and a lot of others say is there. All right, so of the 4 things in facing the inevitability of death, there's the idea of the big sleep. That was mine. I tried to, when I messed up my life so bad, and my conscience was killing me, and I decided to kill myself. And I just thought that I would take a whole lot of pills, sleeping pills, and go off into what I was thinking would be the big sleep. And you know what I mean by that. It just means that once you die, there'll be nothing there on the other side. Now, I've told this story in Rescued from Hell because what I found on the other side, just in a glimpse, was enough to scare me for the next 2 decades of my life. But the idea of the big sleep is that you don't have to worry about conscience and moral failure, because you'll just go to sleep and that'll be the end of it. You might live on, best case scenario, in other people's memories, but you won't have memories of your own. There won't be anything of you left. You just go to sleep, little darling, and all will be well. You won't have dreams, but you won't have nightmares. So that's the plus with that theory, if only it were true. Now, the second one is one that I call a lobotomy. It's the cycle. You know what I'm talking about. It's the cycle. You're just caught in a cycle of life right now, and at the end of your life, you'll be recycled. It sometimes goes by the name of reincarnation, but it is going to come around again and again and again, and you won't die exactly. You'll be recycled. The only problem is, well, there are a couple of problems. First of all, you're not going to remember yourself. You're not going to be the you that you are now. You'll be somehow, it's still you, but it's not you because you don't remember anything. Your memories don't travel with you unless you go into hypnosis. Well, I could talk about that at another time. But the you that you are, you don't have to worry about conscience and moral failure because they all land up on some other version of yourself in the future. You're just dealing with the problems that you got stuck with because of some failure in your past life that you don't even remember. I mean, how crazy is this? So that's the lobotomy. I don't know why anybody would want to be stuck in that cycle, except that it has an end game, and we'll get to that. The third one is the sucker's bet. And I call the sucker's bet that idea that all paths lead to God in heaven, and that it really doesn't matter whether you have moral failure in this life because God loves you so much. It's all going to be a wash, and you'll just die and you'll be in heaven. And Hollywood is really good at making this one seem so attractive and desirable. And sure, that's what's got to happen. There's never any mention of judgment in Hollywood films that go at it this way. And so the idea is that, oh, wouldn't it all be lovely? We'll die and there'll be heaven and it'll be fine. We'll wander around in Elysian fields or whatever we do. My friends, the odds against this being right are very long. Conscience is saying it can't be right. And conscience is never wrong. But if you want to take that bet, which is the exact opposite of Pascal's famous wager coming from the 1600s, Pascal was a French mathematician and a devout Christian. And he said, listen, if you're going to make a bet, you ought to bet that there is a heaven and a hell and live your life accordingly. Because even if there isn't a heaven or a hell, you will at least have lived within the moral boundaries. You will at least have lived by believing in hope-filled and good things, and that will have kept you afloat so much better. You'll have had a better life. Don't take the sucker's bet that there's no reward against those who lived badly, punishment against those who lived badly. No, the odds against that are very long. And the working out of those odds, as if they go against you, are very long and unfortunate. So don't take that one. Or here's the fourth one. I call it mindless bliss. It's the idea that rather than being a living symphony of sound and sight and reason, we're going to be merged into a universal mind. You'll no longer, when you're at your best, a beautiful symphony of everything that's happened in your life flowing forward. You'll stop being that. You'll just be one note going on, merged into the universal consciousness. You won't be yourself anymore. You won't know it. Your moral failures won't be ahead against you. Somehow that note on the inside will go on, but it won't be you. It's great for the universal mind. You get swallowed up, but it's not so good for you because you cease to exist as a person. It's rather like the big sleep in disguise, and it is the end point for the recycling program of some religions, but it doesn't have anything to recommend it in terms of being vitally alive. And so now we come to the question, what if there is a fifth thing out there, something that has been almost universally believed by the vast majority of people that ever lived, that there is a place on the other side of rewards and a place on the other side of punishments. In short, heaven and hell. What if that exists? Conscience tells us that it's not going to go well for us if we don't find some way to be saved so that we can end up on the positive side of the ledger and end up in those starry heavens, in the eternal realms. That's where we want to get. And to get there, we know by the side of our own moral failure, if we're honest about it, that we don't qualify. How can we get there unless we're saved? So what's the second reason why we need to be saved? The inevitability of death combined with the honest recognition of our own moral failure. So let's go on to reason number 3, which is the third reason and the best of all, from the standpoint of having made my way now through the first two and entering into the glory of the third one. The third one is, why do we need to be saved? We're separated from God. The greatest, what, are you kidding me? The greatest person in the universe, the one that set it all in motion, the one that created us, we can't see him. We can't, in a natural state, we can't see him. We can't hear him. We're out of touch. We're out of communion. We don't know what he's thinking. We don't know what he wants exactly. We don't know what his desires are. We don't know how he feels about us. We're cut off from, if Christianity is right, and I certainly believe that it is, we're cut off from knowing the greatest person in the universe to know, the most loving, joy-filled person imaginable is our Creator God, and we're separated from him. How bad is that? And yet, if we can be reconnected, oh my goodness, not to know this God is the worst possible form of ignorance and loss that you or I could ever experience. And the strangest thing about it is how normal it feels to the average person before they encounter him. Once we encounter him, it's like, oh, how could I possibly have not known you were there? And so, God save us from not knowing you. And that, my friends, is exactly what he wants to do. So let's go on to question number 4.